Hello everybody, welcome to Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Today I have a 11 by 14 quarter sheet of Stonehenge Aqua in front of me. I pre-wet the paper just now, like just a few seconds before turning on this film. And just looking at the film itself, it seems like I have a little bit of dark contrast, so the painting is going to be lighter than it'll look. Anyway, so today I'm going to do a scene that I've done in the past. It's of the local bridge and church and the river in front of it. I haven't done this in quite a few months, but it's a popular scene. It's a local spot, and people enjoy it, and it's a good painting to either donate to local charities whenever they have auctions or anything like that, or if I'm doing a market and people want some local paintings. So, like I said, it's been a while, so we'll see what happens with it. I'm going to take some raw sienna and just put in the sky. We may incorporate some of our experiments from our previous sky practices. The horizon line, I'm going to look at more of a edge of water and land line. I'm going to look at it in that regard. Now, I'm going to use mainly the Ron Ransom palette, but instead of light red oxide, I'm going to use the Venetian red. We have been playing around with the earth tones in the sky. Even though raw sienna is an earth tone, we've been kind of adding other earth tones and playing around with it. Just gives an interesting effect. And I'll try using it for this one. Whenever I do that, I'm just flattening the paper out. I find that 100% cotton works best for that. And whatever I do above, I'm going to do below. Not so much mimicking, but just getting the same color qualities. In hindsight already, I probably should have left a little bit white right there for let me do this, reflections from the light. But we'll see how it plays out. Let's grab, I've been playing with Payne's Gray and the earth tone mixture, which has been pretty fun. If you mix it with raw sienna, you get a green. But if you mix it with light red oxide or Venetian red, I guess you'd call this kind of a mauve. There's going to be a church in this region, so I'm questioning how far to go with the wet and wet with the sky, especially with cloud structures. Since this will pass behind the steeple. I don't really want this too texturized. Payne's gray. So I'm just playing around. Someone in one of the art groups recently posted a cloud that was more of a negative painting, where it was painting the blue and leaving the white of the paper to get the cloud shape. And that's something I've done in the past. Like if my time hop on Facebook pops up and says, oh, here's photos from a year or two ago, and I've noticed that I had done stuff like that, but that's something I need to practice again and implement and do a video on, because I feel that I would struggle a little bit since I haven't practiced that in a while. And I apologize for not having a video a day and doing a lot of time lapses. I've been playing with portrait work, whether it's pencil, pen, gouache, oil, and at the level that I'm at now with that, I doubt people want to watch a 45-minute video on that. I'm still working on it. Last night I did a fun oil painting. It was less portrait, more figure. It was based off a photo of an older gentleman standing there and his hand on his kind of, I guess, below the breastbone. And I kind of turned it into a chiaroscuro-esque portrait. So it's just a dark suit, dark background, dark right side of the face, just highlights on the left, which was a lot of fun. I haven't uploaded that picture to Instagram yet though. And I went to film it as a time lapse, but when I pressed the film button, apparently I did normal film, and I don't think my camera had enough memory for a normal film. And then if we wanted a lift in the sky for little highlights on these clouds, so we're going to have a lot of darkness down in here. Now, with this painting, with the scene, there's a tree line, and I'm just marking it out just to show y'all. Tree line, there's going to be a church steeple in this region. There's a business. It's a car dealership, an auto repair place. There's Dupuy's, a seafood restaurant, which doesn't really show up that much in the scene. And there's another restaurant called Black's, which is a red building in that area. And then coming towards us, there's a drawbridge. So, kind of give you an idea of where we're going with it. So, I'm going to get a green for the tree line, but this time I'm going to take raw sienna and I'll mix that with the Payne's gray. And this is kind of a green that comes from the Ron Ransom palette. This is also a green that shows up in the Zorn palette. The Zorn palette, and I'm just going to blab while I do this. So I'm going to put this line in for the trees and I'll talk about it. So the Zorn palette has black, white, yellow ochre, and a either a cadmium red light or a vermilion color. The mixture of the yellow ochre, which is a more opaque raw sienna, and black gives you the green in the Zorn palette. In the Ron Ranson palette, raw sienna, a more transparent version of the ochre, yellow ochre, and Payne's Gray, which is a mixture of blue and black, will give you green. So there's that carryover between those two palettes. And in hindsight, speaking about it, I wonder how much Ron Ranson was influenced by the Zorn palette itself. Now the Zorn palette is like a very limited portrait palette, and it has it's very interesting. I would look it up if I were y'all. Watercolor, there's been some like talks in blog posts from people about potentially using it there, but I've never seen any results from it. I have used it with some of the gouache paintings. I have done it with the oil paintings, which is beneficial because as I'm relearning oil portraits, or portraits in general, it's very important to not have an excessive number of paints and pigments whenever you're learning any type of painting. Like right now, we've only used raw sienna, Venetian red, Payne's Gray. I think that's it. So we've only used 3 colors so far. This is just a little bit darker with the Payne's Gray, bringing that reflection down. I originally painted this scene 2 summers ago. It's a popular scene. It's looking out from a restaurant called the Riverfront, where a lot of us teachers would get together on Fridays and things like that. And it's just a classic location in the town that I'm in. And I had painted it because the local woman who runs the farmer's market, which I was then going to do in 2 days' time after I had done the painting, she had suggested do local scenes. People like that. So I did that. And I sent a picture of my dad, who grew up in this town, and he recognized it right away and said he wanted it. And I couldn't, say no to that. So my first scene from this hometown for the markets now belongs to my dad. And it was cool. I made some prints of it, and some people have purchased the prints. And then, like I said, from there, it became a really good scene to sell at markets if I needed something that would sell. It also was just a fantastic scene for charities and all that. I probably have done the scene 20 times. Well, probably more than 20 times. And the amount of money raised from this scene for charities has got to be over $1,000 at this point, where, I'll paint it, I'll give it to them, either I'll mat it for them and they'll mat it, and then they'll frame it, and then they'll put it up. We even once had a local business where I'd gotten the prints made. A great gentleman said, well, whenever it comes time for a fundraiser or an auction or something like that, let me know and I'll print it up on canvas for free for you. So he did that. He printed up on canvas. He put it on the large canvas, printed, and then my friend who does a auction for the Rotary Club, which goes to the local community, he in turn had a cypress frame built for it, and this print on canvas and a cypress frame auctioned for $500. and that money went to the community, to building a pavilion at the local park, to I think they did a skate park with some of that money. I mean, obviously they were auctioning off other items too, and they also yeah, it just went to a lot of good stuff. And I think this year's current fundraiser, which had to be pushed back due to COVID, I donated a oil painting looking from the other side, so you don't see the river, but you see the church and you see the square, and just a little bit of the bridge that you'll see here. It's that building Blacks that I was telling you about that resides higher up. Anyway, this year's fundraiser goes towards the swipeable cards at the schools for people to get in, and I guess a push button system where the secretary can see who's there and allow people to enter the building. So for the church, I would usually do like a grayish purple since it resides back here further, but we'll see what we're working with. I mix a little bit blue into this mixture. It's still wet in the sky. I haven't done any dry off, so I just have to be careful where I put my hand. The location is off, I can tell you right now. I think it's more to the left within it, but artistically it just works in the spot. One of the reasons that made me want to paint this today is, first of all, the excessive number of portrait practices I've been doing, and I needed a change of pace. It's also good practice to go back and see where I'm at and how my painting style has progressed comparatively. And then, on top of all that, I did see a Facebook post today saying that the farmer's market that I do, which has been closed, of course, is approved for opening on the 20th of this month, which it's a little weird because, you know, with the social distancing and all that, thinking I'm gonna go, and I've been doing so many paintings that are 11 by 14, 11 by 15. Kind of wondering how I'm going to set up and present. It's the roof. Just give it a little bit of perspective. The side of the building's brick, so I'm going to grab the light red oxide for that. You could also mix in raw sienna if you wanted a more terracotta color. And I think I'm not going to worry about any hard edges here. I'm just going to let everything kind of work together. A little bit of Payne's gray, just as if we had an overhang catching that shadow. There's a clock on the tower. We could do something as simple as taking the paper towel and lifting that spot right there. It might backfill a little bit like it did, but we don't want to paint a perfect clock at that distance. I might even take a little bit of this dark and feed it right in here. Blacks, the building, has its name, Blacks, right up in here. But rather than painting in the name, which sometimes I'll write it in and all that, I'll just do the illusion of something being there. We could even put in the Dupuy's that I was talking about, the seafood restaurant. That's another restaurant we would go as teachers afterwards. Now, being that we are painting the water, let's bring this guy's reflection down. I don't want to make it perfect. I don't want to have two paintings in one, meaning that we have this image above and then we'd have a perfect image below. The water itself is the Vermilion River, and that's usually flowing either high or low, so just grab a little bit of Payne's Gray for the top of that roof. Now, we haven't done a dry off yet. Let's grab ultramarine and burnt umber just to neutralize it some. We'll just add some variety to this tree line. And then put that dark reflection down below. Okay, so artistically, there's a lot of different things you can do at this point. If you're doing a scene in this fashion, I could start adding tree branches. I could do a slight dry off, and then on the halfway point, scrape some trees out. I don't think I'm going to go into much detail with those guys. There is another building that resides right here. There is a what's it called? A realtor building. So let's put that there. Yeah, so the bridge itself is going to come about here. I'm just going to mark it out. I found that I'm becoming less and less afraid of like marking things, which is helpful. It's going to have its reflection and it's going to have its shadow. So I'm going to put that reflection in now and the shadow while we have the wet and wet. I could do this with the Hake or with this number 4 rigger. Number 4 rigger is grabbing enough pigment and water for me, and it's fast and loose enough. I'm going to have these bridges here. The drawbridge has these parts that come up, and it's going to be about this area, so I'll just feed in. Like I said, I want to not make a perfect reflection, especially since the water's moving. And with this, we could use burnt sienna, but kind of resisting using it just as more of a personal challenge to myself. And the reason I say burnt sienna is that we can mix that with the ultramarine to neutralize it. All right, let me do a dry off so I could actually put the bridge in. should be good enough. So the bridge itself, if extended in this fashion, it is going to, perspective-wise, get larger as it gets closer to us. This is a mixture of like the ultramarine, the burnt umber, the Payne's gray. Kind of just a go-to dark mixture for me. I was tempted to pull out the white and black wash for this one, but I'm going to resist that temptation. Mainly because I, let's see, sorry, let me focus for a second just to get the lines. When I was thinking about the white gouache, sometimes white gouache or Titan Buff Titan, will work out really well as a dry brush effect over trees or as it's drying. But I think I'm going to, so I'm not going to do that. So oh, no, it's supposed to go this way. So we have the second pillar, the lifting part. So this part lifts the bridge up high. And we'll talk about this a bit more in a second. Okay. So this is just a kind of support structure right here. And then there's chains that run down. There's a pulley system, and that pulls the bridge up from here to here for boats to pass. There's a lot of, I think it's shell and granite and rock and stuff like that that gets moved along the Vermilion, and those are what the bridges at this point are usually passing underneath the boats. But I think there used to be a lot more variety going through here. Anyway, on this side, they have heavy concrete, I believe, that will lower, and that's to counterbalance the bridge coming up. And yeah, it's pretty cool. When we had the flood in 2016, this bridge was the only one that was somewhat impassable. We called this the old bridge in town, because there's a newer drawbridge if you go down this river, less than a mile, I think. But that one, the bridge itself didn't flood, but on both sides it had flooded so deep that nobody could pass through. This one, if you come a little bit closer on the road, the Vermilion had went over and it flooded where this hits the road, but people in big trucks were able to pass. And speaking of flooding and all that, the other day, you know, with all the craziness going on in the world and all this stuff, and we're always saying, oh, what's next month? What's next month going to bring? I had said to my fiance, I was like, just don't tell me there's going to be something that forms in the Gulf next month. Like, so, like a week ago. And I think Tropical Storm Christoph has just formed. And I think the latest projection is to Morgan City. Originally, they had it towards Lafayette, which is the city directly north of me. Morgan City is south east of me. But of course those things can change with every update. Now, one thing I do paint in this background that I save for the end are telephone wires and telephone poles. There's one on either side. I should probably be grabbing the #1 rigger for this, just to run some wires and stuff. But I just go very gently. I'm not going to do the whole wire path. Just give the illusion. Now, you could get a little bit of dry brushing going down in the water. Let's grab some raw sienna. And now it's pretty much done. This is the basic scene. Then I could tickle it whatever direction I want. There's, you could put in a little wet and wet windows in these buildings. You could come in afterwards, put little windows in. In fact, I do have a #1 rigger right here, so grab that. So just a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just to give the illusion that we have a little bit of stuff going on. You're not going to see a super amount of detail. And in actuality, you might see a super amount of detail at this distance, but doing the artistic liberty to push things as far as I can. Let me take a dry off and stand back and see what we're working with. So I could have emphasized the clouds like we did in previous cloud experiments. That'd be the part 2 one where we darken some spots. But I don't think it's super beneficial in a watercolor of this nature, meaning that we might not let everything recede so much. It might put too much emphasis on the sky as opposed to all this other stuff. Of course, and I mentioned this, here's just burnt umber and ultramarine. You could add a little variety on this. Just do a little textural marks. First time I painted the scene, I did a lot of scraping of rocks on the edge that are often put there as erosion preventative measures. But for the life of me, I can't think of the term. I think it starts with a, well, I know it's pilings, but the rocks wouldn't be pilings. I want to say it starts with a B, but I'm not sure. I'll just let these guys work their way in. All right, we'll sign it. I hope you enjoyed. Down below I have links for my Patreon account. I would love for you to consider joining. It's very cheap and it helps with art supplies and whatnot. There's also some exclusive content for more tutorials and videos. What else? Oh yeah, please like, subscribe, comment on this channel. If you ever have any questions or anything you want me to discuss, let me know, comment below. I try to answer all comments, and if I miss a comment, it's a little because I just missed a notification. So, let me wipe my lens. Let me see if that's what it's causing. Alright, there's the results. I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to y'all soon. Be safe, and yeah, have a great day.